Well, as you might expect from an organization called the American Christian Patriot Church, we have a very high regard for the Constitution of the United States. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. The fact of the matter is that the Constitution is becoming increasingly irrelevant over the years. For decades now, we've been kind of pushing it off, farther and farther to the side, out of our lives. And as we have, we've seen that in so many areas we've been violating constitutional principles. We have a president now who's making a mockery of it with all of his executive orders, which was never the intention of the founders and the framers of the Constitution. We see that in virtually every respect, our rights have been diminishing. First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Ninth, all of them have been growing smaller and smaller and smaller. But there are other ways in which our Constitution is being ignored. And I've never heard anyone talk about this, and we always like to bring you fresh topics here on the Quest, this portion of the American Christian Patriot Church meeting. So we're going to talk about a different area. Now, it's especially relevant this year because this is an election year when we will be choosing the next president of the United States. There are certain requirements to be president of the United States. I won't go into all of them. If you want to look it up in the Constitution. But one of them is that you must either be a citizen of the United States at the time that the Constitution was ratified, and thereafter you must be a natural-born citizen. Now, the reason for the two different reasons is that if we didn't have that second part, people like Washington and Adams and Jefferson and Madison wouldn't be in a position to be elected president because there was no United States at the time of their birth. And some of them wouldn't have qualified for that reason. But now, basically, that one exception no longer exists. You have to be a natural-born citizen. Now, what is a natural-born citizen? The Constitution doesn't define it. And that's because at the time, it was assumed. We know what a natural-born citizen is. Just like if I ask somebody to go, or if my wife asked me to go to the store and pick up bananas, she doesn't have to define what a banana is. I know what a banana is, okay? Just like back then, they didn't have to define natural-born citizen because people knew what it was. But we don't know what it is now. We have an erroneous conception of what a natural-born citizen is. We mistake it for a native-born citizen. We think that if somebody is born in the country, they are a natural-born citizen and therefore eligible to be president. That's not true. That's not true. See, and we can find this by looking at the founders and whom they respected. They had certain mentors, philosophical and legal mentors. Among the philosophical mentors were guys like Montesquieu, Locke, Blackstone, and one of the legal mentors was a guy named de Vattel. De Vattel wrote a multi-volume tome on law, international law, etc. And I think it's in volume 19. He defines the term natural-born citizen. And that means that the founders would have used the same definition. They would have understood it the same way because basically he wrote the text on the law for that time. So why didn't they define it? They didn't have to. It's in this book. And what did that book say? A natural-born citizen is somebody who not only is born in the country, but is born of a father who was a citizen of the country. Do you realize how many people that disqualifies? For one thing, the current president of the United States. The birthers made a mistake. They focused on where Obama was born. And whether he was born in Hawaii or not, who knows? Who cares? That's not the issue. Obama himself admitted that his father was not a citizen of the United States. Therefore, Obama is not qualified to be president of the United States. His whole administration is unconstitutional. And it's still not too late to pursue that and get a ruling on that. And if we do, we can nullify everything that he has put his hand to, everything that he has signed. Right. Think about that. But let's bring it up into 2016. Let's see. Which of the candidates have already admitted that their fathers were not citizens of the United States? Governor Jindal, Senator Ted Cruz, Senator Marco Rubio. Now, this is no bias to them or the Republicans or the Democrats. It's a statement of fact. It doesn't matter whether I like him or I dislike him. If you're going to play by the rules, then this is one of the rules. These men are therefore, if this is true that their fathers were not citizens of the United States, they are not natural-born citizens. They cannot legally, constitutionally, serve as President of the United States. Let's look at a few more who are unqualified. The Constitution says that if you are guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors as president, you can be impeached. Well, there goes Hillary Clinton. I mean, good grief. This is one of the most evasive, slippery criminals of our time. You know, and if she gets caught and convicted for the things that she has done, then, you know, she's out. I mean, why? Let's save ourselves the trouble of having to impeach her. Let's just acknowledge right now all of the stuff that's going on. I mean, there's been so many things throughout her history, but especially now with this whole email thing. Look, General Petraeus got axe murdered, basically, in terms of his career for something far less than what Hillary Clinton did. Right? He was convicted. They're talking about taking away one or two of his stars. So how come Hillary gets a pass? And now that brings us to the topic of discussion for tonight. Bernie Sanders. We've already disqualified a good part of the Republican field. Let's disqualify a good part, in fact, nearly all, of the Democratic field. We already said Hillary is out because of the high crimes and misdemeanors. What about Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders is a professed and confessed Democratic Socialist. Democratic Socialist. So we're going to turn it over to Dave now. Dave, can a Democratic Socialist, in good faith, take the oath that is required of the President of the United States? Why or why not? And then if you'd explain, please.
Well, first I would say no. The reason that I would say no is that in order for you to raise your hand, put one hand on the Bible and put your other hand in the air and take an oath to that office and to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So if you are a socialist, how can you do that in good conscience? Because everything that you would normally think of regarding socialism is completely counter to everything that the Constitution says and stands for. Mm-hmm. If you are a socialist, you believe in national control of all property, governmental control of property, governmental regulation of every aspect of your life. It seems to me that the Constitution says that we have a right. Actually, let me take that back. The Declaration of Independence says that we have an inherent right to life, liberty, and property. Okay? So if we have a right to that property, the Constitution is formed as a document that enforces the goals of the Declaration of Independence. The Constitution is nothing more than a contract. It is a contract between the federal government and the states to operate within the bounds listed within the Constitution. And so if you are going to take an oath to uphold, swear, protect, and defend that Constitution, how can you be a socialist? Because not only is property an issue, all of the basic tenets of our freedom are an issue. And I will agree that Bernie Sanders is listing himself as a democratic socialist, but let's take that a step further. He believes in large government national control of the country. So doesn't that make him a democratic national socialist? And where else have we heard that term in history? The Nazi Party were democratic national socialists. Now, I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders wants to kill a few million people. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know what's in the man's head, but I don't have any reason to believe that. But when we look at socialism throughout history, whether it be Southeast Asia, whether it be Communist China, whether it be Korea, whether it be South America, Central America, or the good old USSR, virtually every form of socialism that has been tried throughout the world since the late 1800s has been a dismal failure, not just for the form of government, but for the people that it was supposed to represent. Now, what's the difference between communism and socialism? I would argue that the difference between socialism and communism is, one, the government uses a gun to say what you are going to do, and that's communism, the form of communism. In socialism, the government uses the ballot box and basically an oligarchy to control every aspect of your life. In both forms, the police are nationalized. The police have literally police state authority over the people. You go to countries like France, for example, there are no local police. There are national police. Now, why is that important? When law enforcement is at local control, like our sheriff, we have the ability to vote him in office and vote him out of office. When law enforcement is at the national level, we have no control over it whatsoever. It is beyond our control. Now, I've heard a pretty good definition of what is a police state. A police state occurs when the law enforcement is concerned about protecting the government, not protecting the people. Now, you look at Bernie Sanders and what he believes. He believes in taxing you basically into oblivion. He wants to give free stuff to everybody that he knows that we have no way of affording, that we can control.
College students is one of them.
Free college, free health care, cradle to grave benefits of every kind throughout the government. And when asked how he's going to pay for this, he basically dodges the question. I saw a recent thing that added up all of the free stuff that Bernie Sanders wants to give away, and it probably exceeds our national debt that we have already, which is almost $20 trillion, by the way. So on so many levels that we can think of, Bernie Sanders is totally disqualified from service as president, raising his hand and taking an oath to the office to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, because everything he believes in is counter to the Constitution.
And there's another aspect of this. He's not just a socialist, he is a democratic socialist. The founders despised democracy. This word has become so popular now that we kind of take it for granted. The founders despised democracy. They called it mobocracy. And yet it's become kind of a cult value in America now. Not so. Why did they dislike it so much? Yes, they wanted the people's will to be followed, but through a series of laws and regulations that would protect it from these radical swings that can come about when you have pure democracy. See, our founders were incredibly well educated, and they knew that democracies always kill themselves. They always commit suicide. And the reason they do that is, hey, most people are lazy, right? Those of us who do work, a lot of times we don't do it because we really want to, but because we have to. But we feel obligations to our friends, to our family, to take care of them, so we work. But most people are basically lazy. Well, when 51% of those lazy people realize that they can take charge of the government with 51% and vote themselves into the pockets of the workers, it's done. It's over. And what was one of those big issues in the last election? In fact, Mitt Romney had gotten a lot of heat for this, saying that about, 48% of the people are on some form of government assistance already. Well, he was on target there. I'm not a big fan of Mitt Romney, but he was on target there. When 51% of the people realize they can take control and now reach legally into the pockets and the bank accounts of the other 49%, you're not going to have 49% for long. It's going to drop to 48, then 47, then 37, then 27. Because people are going to say, why am I working my tail off and I don't get to keep it? Why am I working my tail off to help myself, my family, and I can't keep it? I'll join the dole line. I'll get the free stuff that Bernie is promising too. And that's why the founders did not want a democracy. They wanted a republic. It's different in a republic. Someone once said, and this has been attributed to a lot of different people, that a democracy is like two wolves arguing over what to have for lunch with a sheep. You know, one sheep, two wolves, and they're going to vote what to have for lunch. You think the sheep has a chance? No. A republic is two wolves and a sheep, but the sheep is armed. And the arms is from the rules and regulations that protect the sheep. See, in a republic, we have, the idea of a republic is called lex rex. The law is king, not the people. The law is king. Now, the people can change the law, but it's supposed to take an arduous, time-consuming process. So the laws aren't changing like this all the time. You know, whichever happens to be 51%, we go this way, we go that way. It's meant to be a long, arduous, difficult process in a republic. Lex rex, the law is king, not the people. And so the laws are written in the United States originally to protect all the people and to protect them from the ravenous wolves who only have to worry about outnumbering the sheep. As soon as the sheep are outnumbered, it's over for the sheep. And we in America, who are the workers, the productive people, we're the sheep. We're getting outnumbered. We don't have the law anymore to protect us if this is no longer a republic, if it becomes a democracy. And Bernie Sanders said flat out, I am a democratic socialist. Democracy is inconsistent with the system set up with the Constitution. How can he raise his hand and say, I'm going to honor the Constitution? And socialism is flat out inconsistent. The Constitution itself often refers to life, liberty, property, life, liberty, property. Socialism is a complete violation of personal property. Socialism says the state can do whatever they want with your property. In fact, it's not even your property anymore. It belongs to the state. It's a complete violation of the concept of private property. So, how can Bernie Sanders, in good faith, take that oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution? So look what we've done tonight. We've just disqualified Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, Rubio, Cruz, Jindal, and I mean, this is just constitutional issues. It's not a matter of whether I like them or not. I like some of them better than others, but I'm sorry. If these are the rules, if we don't follow them, we're no longer a nation of laws. There you go.
In fact, you could probably further disqualify everybody else that's running on one other basic principle. And that is that we have become so accustomed to them breaking the law and breaking the Constitution that we think it's the norm now. Every one of these people has basically said that they are going to keep the status quo for almost all of these injustices that have been done against we the people. Something that I saw that I can't help but get mad every time I see it. I have one of my favorite pictures is a artist rendering of the arguments going on during the first Constitutional Convention, actually the second Constitutional Convention, and it's got George Washington standing up leading the thing, and all these senators, you know, from Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, and they're all arguing back passionately about the Constitution. In fact, one of the best books that I've read on the subject, and I'd recommend it to anybody, it's called The Summer of 1787. And it talks about the argument. What was happening then is they were present. They were arguing. They were making passionate pleas for what they believed in. Now, look at C-SPAN. When we look at C-SPAN, you see a senator up there making a passionate speech, and the camera zooms back, and it's empty. It's empty. Now, how can they be arguing and presenting the facts and swaying minds when the chamber is empty? This is how we end up with 3,000-page healthcare bills that violate every principle that our Constitution stands for. That's how we get that. And what was it? How many times did Barack Obama vote present? You know?
That was his favorite response to most laws. Wouldn't commit. Yeah, you're right. I'm sure we could disqualify other people. I mean, not an outright disqualification now, but even Trump. Okay, we're going to be an equal opportunity basher. We're basically bashing pretty much all of the main candidates. If you listen to a lot of the things that Trump is saying, a lot of people are drawn to him because they're fed up with the establishment, and that's excellent, good. But Trump is out there saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. What does that sound like? You almost have to add just a couple words to say, I've got a phone, I've got a pen.
Yeah.
No, the president doesn't have the authority to make laws. He's got to work with the Congress if you're going to do it constitutionally. So a lot of the appeal of Trump, yeah, it's appealing to a lot of people, but a lot of the things he's talking about doing, he can't do as president. And he's acting like he can. It's got to be done through the legislature. And then the Supreme Court's a whole other issue. But, so you might be thinking, well, gee, American Christian Patriot Church, who do you support for president? We told you, we have another path. We're going to show you how to fight and win the Second American Revolution in less time than it took to win the first, without taking over the White House, the Congress, the Supreme Court, or any constitutional amendments. And if that sounds crazy, stay tuned. I've given this presentation to other groups. They think it's crazy too, and after about a half an hour, they're all on board. We can do it. What you're seeing now in 2016 presidential election is political theater. These are puppets you're watching. No matter who gets elected, it's not going to matter a hill of beans. It's not. They're in a straitjacket. They have this much wiggle room once they sit down at that chair behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, because somebody else is pulling the strings. We have to address that issue, and we know how to do it. We'll show you how to take back this country, regardless of who's in the White House, regardless of who's in the Congress, regardless of who's in the Supreme Court. You have anything further?
You about covered it.
Anybody out here, any questions? Yes?
Okay, you've disqualified all these candidates, president himself, they're breaking laws, I mean, okay, the whole country.
But who
is
do you
going to
vote
hell
for?
The whole country is going to hell in a handbasket, and that's my two-part question, is that, okay, who do you vote for? Because we know that you have to just vote for the two of the less evils, you know what I mean? Plus, is where are the watchdogs of this country? These laws have been written. So how can these candidates just, I mean, throw their name in the bag, so to speak, and yet be considered when there are clear guidelines for all this stuff? And yet, somehow, Obama's, he's got a bulldozer bulldozing through our country, doing whatever the heck he wants. Where are the watchdogs for that? Where are the watchdogs that say, no, you can't run for president if, you don't meet the criteria, and no, you can't write that law, you're going against the constitutional rights. I mean, so what has happened that these people have been able to perpetrate their ideologies on our country, and yet the defining lines are so clear, yet somehow they have, gotten past the what is obvious and become and taken this country into the place. And then the other thing is that how can because you were talking about, I forget the guy's name, but he wants to give all these things that literally supersede our budget. So where are the watchdogs for that? I mean, it's like,
Well, they're all asleep is part of the problem. They're all asleep. And the ones that are speaking out and actually trying to do something about it are getting shot in snowbanks in places like Oregon. And part of the problem is, it's what we're talking about is it's a massive problem.
right.
But one thing that I would say is that, first of all, as voters, we have to focus on the stuff that is close to us. The sheriff, the governor, the city councils, the attorney general in the state is a very, very important position. The closer you are to you, the more effect that you can have. And one of the things that really upsets me about the current system, the way that it's set up, is, for example, the primary system is designed to disqualify people rapidly. It's designed to disqualify them before we ever get to vote for them. Now, for example, just to throw one out there, let's say that I was a Rand Paul supporter. Okay? Well, guess what? It's months away from the California having any say whatsoever in the primary, and he's already gone. We've already been disenfranchised. Now, I'd say at a national level, voting at a national level in the state of California, if you're going to vote anything other than blue, guess what? It's a wasted vote. Because California is, by the way it's been set up around us, is a winner-take-all state. So that means if they get 51%, the whole state goes blue. Well, guess what? Los Angeles, San Francisco, Berkeley, all of those places along the coast are going to make that decision for us.
Now, how did that happen with, when...
It's engineered that way. They have engineered to take that choice away from us and put it into a small hands.
So then what happens, when the whole country went blue for Romney, but yet Obama's the one that won?
Yeah,
How did that happen?
because a few high populous states that have a large number of delegates, basically electoral votes, they push it in that direction. You can win the popular vote, but lose it on the Electoral College. The Electoral College had its place when we were a very small rural country spread out, by thousands of mile distance. But we're in the information age. We can know who won the presidency before the polls close. Again, another problem. When the polls are closing and they're saying this guy's already won, why would you go bother to vote?
Yeah, that's true.
It's already been decided.
Yeah, because I know when I voted, it was after the fact, because I voted against Obama, and it was already up. They were already saying Obama won, but I still just out of the...
And the Electoral College is another example of us being a republic, not a democracy. It was set up specifically so that it would not just be a democratic vote. Electors were supposed to be one step away from the voters, and they're supposed to be theoretically on a higher level, so that even if, their electors aren't obligated. If you are the Democratic elector and you get selected for your area, you don't have to vote for him. You're not obligated to. The idea is the electors hopefully are one step away from the mobocracy, and that they will be a little wiser and they'll apply that wisdom and say, maybe not. Maybe something we've seen here recently, he's not the best guy anymore. But that's one aspect of the Electoral College. But as Dave said, he's exactly right. The watchdogs have been asleep. And the main watchdogs are us Christians. We've been letting this happen, and in large part because we bought into these erroneous notions that tell us we shouldn't get political, we shouldn't fight, and separation of church and state, it wouldn't matter anyway. Baloney. And again, next week we're going to deal with the Judge Knott and the separation of church and state issue. You have a question?
Oh, I was just going to ask him, do you guys believe we need a electoral college now? Would it be better for our political system to have just the popular vote?
My view is that, I have a lot of sympathy for the idea of the popular vote, but I also have a lot more trust in the people who founded and framed the Constitution than the people who are out there now. So if they saw the wisdom in the Electoral College, I'm willing to trust them. It's just like this book here. I've got some questions about some things that are in it, but I used to have a whole lot more questions. And every time I've been able to verify something and explore it and come to know what the truth is, this is always one. So there's still a few issues in there that I'm not so sure about, but you know what? It's proved to be right every other time, so I'm going to trust it. It's the same thing. My view is those people who framed the Constitution were a whole lot smarter and wiser than the people who are influencing politics now. And if they thought the Electoral College was a good idea, I'm inclined to go with them. I have some reservations about it, but I'm inclined to go with them.
But, again, to reiterate the point is that, and part of the success of the plan, so to speak, is that, again, you focus your attention on the local level. It's where we really can have control. And as we said last week, it's another reason why states' rights are so important. If you're living in a state that you don't agree with the policies and the direction of the state, you can move. You can go to another state that does support your belief system. But what happens when the whole country is gone in a direction that you no longer believe in? What options are left? Unfortunately, they're all bad options.
Yeah, there's no other planets available right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
And there's no other country in the world that has our level of freedom. As
Exactly.
bad as it has gotten,
Right.
we are still leaps and bounds beyond every other place in the world.
Amen.
And I've traveled a good bit of the world. I've seen a lot of the world. And, you know, there are beautiful places. But I tell you, I'm always glad to be back on American soil because I know what the country stands for, and I know all of the men who fought and died to protect those rights. There's a belief system there. We believe in our system. And it's like, you know, you're talking about believing in the Bible. I believe in the Constitution. I have found no fault in the Constitution. It is written in such a way that it provides us these checks and balances. The problem is that the checks and balances are no longer being obeyed. Neither is the Constitution.
It's like what he said about, you know, you can't legislate immorality. I mean, if there's immoral people in running, regardless of how great the system is, they ain't gonna follow it.
right. Yeah.
You know?
So you might be thinking here, we've pretty much bashed all the major candidates, disqualified many of them, questioned others of them. So you might think, well, just what direction are we going to take? Like we said, we've got a different plan. We said that from the beginning. We've got a whole different plan, a bold plan, and we can start making a difference in this country in a fundamental way in a matter of months, not years or decades. We can really turn things around. We can change the political energy in America, and we can start doing it very soon. We're going to start talking to you about that plan very shortly. But here's the thing. All you people who are concentrating all your effort on electing the next president, we're going to argue that you're focusing on the wrong place. And when you hear our plan, the AR2 plan, you'll see where you do need to focus. And that won't be very far into the future, and we'll be revealing that. But next week, we're going to talk again, the last two elements in our liberation of theology. So we hope you join us. Thank you for joining us with this episode, and we'll look forward to hearing from you that you're going to join the American Christian Patriot Church and get in the fight. Thank you. Good night.
Amen.